This is our first close look at our CahowCam 1 chick. You see he's stretching his little tiny wing buds. All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Jeremy and JP from Nonsuch Island, Bermuda on the afternoon of March the 2nd, 2022. And it's kind of a special check because this is the first time I've been out since our CahowCam 1 chick hatched. It hatched in the early hours of Sunday, I believe it was, in the 27th of February. And here we are in the 2nd, so it's about, this is like 4 days old, more or less. The male bird, male parent, was with it when it hatched. He stayed with it for 2 days after it hatched, fed it a couple of times, and then it headed out to sea for just literally a day. And we think the male came back again. Now this is something, we're doing a new round of geolocator and GPS tags on cahows over the last couple of years. And one thing we've noticed is that sometimes the parents, rather than making a full-blown feeding trip, which can go up to Canadian territorial waters south of Nova Scotia and all the way over almost to the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, 1,200 miles from Bermuda, it didn't do that. We've noticed a small number of these trips only go out about 100, 120 miles to the north or northeast of Bermuda. There's a chain of submerged seamounts which are quite deep, but evidently they're enough to cause some local upwelling in the area. And these seem to be like, the snack shop down the corner, rather than going to the grocery store, which is, a couple of miles down the street. This is just the corner shop and quite close by, and so they can go there to grab a quick bite for themselves and for their chicks, particularly when the chick is very young. So that's what seems to be happening, and that seems to be, if this is the male again, and I'll take it out and confirm that, then that's obviously what happened with this particular feeding trip. Okay, so I'm going to take a look. If the parent's there, I'm going to grab it, take it out so I can weigh it, see who it is, and then I'll take the chick out for its very first weighing for this. Okay, I think the adult might be in the tunnel. Yeah, because I only see the chick's the only one in the nest chamber right now. Yeah, so it's possible that the adult actually heard us talking, and sometimes that gives them enough time to go and hide in the tunnel away from us. All right, so this is our first close look at our CahowCam 1 chick. You see he's stretching his little tiny wing buds. You can't really call them wings right now because they're so tiny. They're often only about 18 millimeters or so at this point. Now, I'm not going to weigh it. I am going to weigh it, but I'm not going to measure it. In about another week or so, I'll measure its bill length, I'll measure its wing cord, the outer wing length, and probably its tarsus, its lower leg length as well. But it's still young enough you can see the little tiny egg tooth on the front of its bill. And it's just a little sharp sort of deposit of calcium that most birds have at hatching, and it helps them to break through the hard shell of the egg. And it's just, virtually every bird does have this little thing. In the case of the cahow, it generally falls off at about 8 to 10 days of age, more or less. So in about another 5 days or so, that little thing will disappear. But it's quite obvious now when you focus in. He looks good, he feels good, he's obviously been fed. When they hatch, they're only about maybe 43, 45, perhaps as low as 38 grams. That seems to be the range from 38 to 45 grams. So it'll be interesting to see what this little one is. It's his first encounter with the bag monster. And it must be kind of frightening the first couple of times because it's probably feels a bit like being swallowed, but they very quickly learn that this is just part of the routine with Daddy Jeremy that they undergo. Their parents certainly did. And there we go. Let's see. Oh yeah, he's definitely been fed. Wow, already. So let's see, 80, 82. Okay, so the weight of the bag, and I just weighed it, is only 10 grams. So it's 72 grams already. So it's increased by like about 75% over its hatching weight already, from about 40, 45 grams to 72 grams. That's just remarkable. Okay, so I'm just gonna put them down so I can write this. 72 grams. That's a great starting weight as far as chick weight. Yeah, I'm not sure. Sometimes I can get the parent to come out into the nest. You can see the hatched eggshell. Normally we might collect these because we're analyzing them for the presence of persistent organic pesticides, things like DDT and DDE and PCPs and such. We're also testing them for the presence of heavy metals such as lead, because these are extremely toxic, and they are unfortunately becoming they're quite present in the oceanic food chain. One of the ways they get there is fallout from a power plant plumes, especially from coal-fired power plants, of which there's a lot in North America to our immediate west. And coal naturally has traces of heavy metals in it. When it's burnt, it's lifted high into the atmosphere. When it rains through those plumes, it precipitates out the microscopic particles of lead and soot and everything else. So it's one of the things that we are looking at, if that's having an effect on breeding success rates. Okay, so he's really decided this bright thing that they call sunlight, it's not really his preferred thing, but he's certainly very curious. He's been an extremely mobile chick. He really is active compared to other chicks of this age that we've seen. And he just seems to really get around the nest a lot. So we're going to put him back in his nest. Put the nest lid back on. Okay, so we're going to check the other nests that most likely have chicks in them at this point. As of my last check, there was only one chick hatched in the 821 nest, and I think there were 5 others that were pipping, or in the very early stages of hatching. So we'll go right up to the next nest, I think. Okay, this is nest number 817, and we do indeed have a bouncing baby cahow in this nest too. The parent is probably out at sea, getting food for it on a foraging trip, or provisioning trip as we call it. And this chick looks a little bit younger. I'd say not by much, or like a day younger than the CahowCam one. So this chick is probably about 2 or 3 days old at this point. Oh, what a cutie. Yeah. This is 820 nest, and this chick is younger, and I could tell his natal down is still fluffing out. So this chick is only about a day or 2 old at the most. It's still in the process of fluffing out, hasn't completely fluffed out. Again, you can see the little tiny egg tooth on its bill, and here's a tiny one. I mean, they look bigger than they actually are, because 2/3 of their mass is this down, but the actual chick under all that down is really quite tiny, and because it has to fit in that egg, of course. And this is a small little guy, so that's really kind of nice to see. Okay, so so far we've confirmed 3 hatched chicks on Nonsuch. We're about to check on the 4th one, and this was actually the first chick to hatch on Nonsuch, and this hatched back as early as the 19th of February, which would make it about 10 or 11 days old now. And that is like the earliest hatching for a cahow chick that I've ever recorded in 22 years since I've taken over the program anyway. So it will be neat to see. Hopefully it's doing well, and Hopefully it's been receiving feeding visits, but if it has, you should notice quite a difference in size between this and the other birds, the other chicks. Yeah, it's by itself, except for a lot of very big cockroaches, and it's quite big. And this is the difference an extra week makes. You can see his about 3 times the size of any of the other chicks we've looked at. Still got a little bit of his egg tooth on his bill, but that should be coming off any time. Some of it has, but he's quite fat. I can actually feel his tummy. It feels like a fur-covered water balloon. I always say. So he's received feeding visits possibly as recently as last night, but he is also now big enough where the parents will come in, feed him, stay with him for a couple hours, and then they'll immediately go back out to sea. They generally do not stay with the chicks, or it's very, very rare anyway, except during the first, 2 or 3 days after they hatch, when they need that little bit of extra warmth. Now, right now, with a double layer of natal down, he really doesn't need. In fact, he's yawning. He was fast asleep and probably digesting this obviously large meal he had. Now, the interesting thing is going to be to see how much he weighs, because I have a feeling it's going to be fairly startling. It's a 10-gram bag. Okay. So, when I checked this last time, I think it was 52 grams. Well, it is now 105 grams. So it's essentially increased by 100 grams. It's tripled in weight since the last time I saw it, which wasn't that long ago. Okay, so this is chick number, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is chick number 5. This is from the Nonsuch Island R816 nest. And this nest actually, it's interesting because this is one of the very first pairs that started nesting on Nonsuch back in 2010-11. And they've produced, quite a few chicks. They produced about 7 chicks or so, 7 or 8 chicks in that time. Big yawn. And they're one of the most successful in terms of the chicks returning. At least 4 of the chicks from this nest have returned, have survived the first years at sea, returned. 2 of them to Nonsuch and 2 of them to some of the other nesting islands. So it seems to be a pair that produces, really healthy chicks that survive, their first several years out at sea and return when they're mature. So, yeah, he's quite small, so I'd say he's about 2 to 3 days old. He seems to be like maybe a day younger than our CahowCam chick, but... Okay, so so far we've confirmed 5 chicks that have hatched at the A colony on Nonsuch. There's probably more at the B colony, but I don't think we're going to have time to check it today. I'm going to check, this was one of the other eggs that was pipping at my last check on whenever it was, Friday I believe it was. So this, hopefully if all went well, this should also have a chick in it. We'll see. And we do. We have chick number 6. Wow, and that's incredible because this is, I believe, the 12th or the 13th chick from this pair. So hopefully, it's still 3 months to go, but if this chick also fledges, this pair again will have a perfect record. And he's quite fat. He's a little bit bigger than some of the other ones. I'd say he's about maybe a day or 2 older than our CahowCam chick. So we're looking at maybe about 6 days old, 5 or 6 days old at least. I'll be able to tell for sure. He's lost, I think, oh no, he's still got a little bit of his egg tooth on the end of the bill, that little white spot. But yeah, he seems to be really good health. So, okay, well, this is a first egg for this new pair in what we call the 842 nest. It's one of these Australian design plastic nests, and the chick is chirping from inside there. It's being brooded by the female bird, and you can see it's got pips, it's got little dimple cracks all around the end of it, and I can feel the the egg literally moving in my hands. Yeah, and you can hear it chirping very faintly in there. So I'm going to quickly put it back. That would be wonderful if this does hatch. And then this is only the first egg. This is a brand new pair, and this is the first egg they've ever produced. And it's rare indeed for a new pair to be, successfully produce a chick, hatch a chick their very first year. So that's often a sign it's going to be a good pair. That's how it was with some of the other exceptionally good pairs and none such. Okay, so we've just finished a quick check of the 29 odd nests at the A colony on Nonsuch Island, and so far we've confirmed that 6 chicks have hatched. Most of the other ones are still incubating their eggs. They were laid a bit later, so they'll be hatching over the next week or two. And we have a brand new pair in a new nest. It's the first egg they've produced, the first year they've been nesting together, and much to my surprise, the chick is hatching right now. It was actually cheeping from inside the egg, and it had already produced a couple of small holes in the shell. So I've just let the adult female, who's with it at this time, back into the nest so she can help to brood it and keep it warm. So that would be their first chick that they've produced, and the first chick that this nest has produced, for this particular pair. So yeah, I'm really happy. Half a dozen chicks. There's probably at least another, hopefully, couple of chicks that have hatched already at the B colony site, but we just don't have time to check it today. We're on a fairly tight schedule, so hopefully tomorrow I'll get a chance to come out. Forecast is good. We had gale force winds last night and over an inch of rain. So, I think some of the birds really took advantage of that to come in and feed the chicks. Most of the chicks have obviously just been fed in the last 24 hours, and they're all at good weights for their age. And they range now, we have ones ranging from 1 day old to 11 days old. So as good as I could possibly hope for. We'll keep you abreast on how things are proceeding with the season. And until then, from Jeremy and JP on Nonsuch Island, everybody have a great day, and we'll catch up with you next time. All the best.